Alright, so I want to show quickly what I did in order to achieve a reflective background for my black mirror. I'm kind of in the final stages of this, so I apologize. I didn't really show you how I painted it beforehand, but it's not a big deal. It's winter now, so I did this in my basement. So first thing, I obviously didn't want a bunch of paint particles going all over the place, so I have a box here. Put newspaper inside just to line it because there might, I think there was a hole and I didn't want black paint to seep through, maybe the sides if there was one. And also, I put newspaper, as you can see, all around here, just so that way particles don't end up all over my rug. But of course, if it's summertime and you have decent temperatures outside, you can obviously do it there. The other benefit of doing it inside, of course, is lack of dust. So that's why I did this. So what I basically did was I took a piece of glass here. I tried this with plastic. It works great, but obviously you get a much higher reflectivity ratio if you excuse me, if you use glass rather than plastic. And when you're cleaning this off on the other side, time and time again, it's not gonna be as prone to scratches because it's glass, has a harder surface. So what I did here, just if I'm gonna kind of reenact, is I put the first thing that I did actually was originally I took the pane of glass, I wiped it down with Windex, or you can use vinegar and water, and it's very important that you use microfiber cloth. If you use something that comes apart like even newspaper, or some people were using not toilet paper, but paper towels, that can come apart just very microscopic pieces. And when you're painting and spray painting something like this on here, you potentially could notice it on the other side. So I use a microfiber cloth. I wiped it very, very well back and forth, and then I carefully set it down in here, being careful not to make sure you don't put your fingerprint at all on them. So I handled it by holding the glass on the other side, since that doesn't really matter. So I would put the glass here, as you can see, okay, and just being careful to make sure that it's as flat as possible. And the reason you want to make sure that it's as flat as possible is to prevent paint. So you can see here, you don't want to spray paint and then paint could come on the other side. Now you'll see in the later video that I covered that side up a little bit with paint on the edges, but since I actually removed the paint now, but I just wanted to show you that. So this is how I did. I laid it nice and flat, making sure none of this is covered up. And then I took this paint right here. Now you can use probably any brand. I used a name brand. I didn't want to take any risks, in having something that wasn't as good. This is black, and as you can probably see later on, there's a little bit of sparkle in there. I thought that would look kind of neat as a mirror. And then it's gloss. If you have the opportunity to get high gloss, that's great. I could only find gloss at my local Ace Hardware, so it is what it is, and it works really well anyway. So try and get high gloss. If you can't, then get regular gloss. And of course, make sure it's as black as possible. In order to obviously have a nice black mirror. And as I mentioned, mine, you can't see it very well on the lid, but it actually has small little particles. Let's see, I think sometimes you can kind of see it on here. Small little particles here and there that just give it a nice kind of contrast. So anyway, this is again what I use. There's a good picture of that. So what I would do is, once I set that glass in there, it's very important, of course, that you got to make sure it's clear, as you can see. And there's nothing special to it. There's no magic way to do it. For me, I just applied one thick layer. You can do multiple layers if you want, but one thick layer worked perfectly well for what I did. And what I did was just held the paint like this, got about 8 to 10 inches, and I just sprayed it just like this, covered it nice and thick. Okay, and then I went to this edge here, and I did the same thing, edge to edge, spraying down a little bit like this. And I went back and forth, and I did all of this just like this, making sure it's nice, as thick as possible, so that I couldn't see through it. And then I went on this side and did the same thing. Okay, I let it dry for about 18 hours or so, and I wanted to make sure that it was nice and thick, so I even sprayed a little bit here and just played around with it right in the center, because it's absolutely important that not only the edges are nice and have a nice thick black coat, it's important that the center does as well. So this was the outcome of this. I like this because I thought to myself, if I, let me get that out of the way. If I get a black mirror here, and you can see myself a little bit in this top mirror, I figured when you're looking at it, you can look to your left and to your right at yourself and kind of have that extra view, and making this mirror even more practical than just a black mirror. But of course, you can use whatever. I mean, it is literally a picture frame, nothing special. So I'll go ahead and turn this over, and I'm going to peel this off, place it in here, of course put the backing on here, and we should be set to go. Now, one thing I wanted to mention, I'm not sure if you can see, but I put a thick coat and only one coat on this. The reason I mention that is, perhaps you might be able to tell if I bring this up to the light, that you can maybe see through it a little bit. You can, there you go, you can see kind of the defects on that. Yes, I could paint this again and it would be black, but remember, it's going to be in a very enclosed dark area. Once that happens, you can see how quickly it becomes reflective and no longer an issue. So I'm going to try that. If it ends up looking really bad, of course I'll paint it again, but I really don't think it's going to be an issue. So I'm going to just peel this off real quick. You can see how reflective that layer is, especially since that's clean. You know, if you have a picture frame at home that you want to try this on, that you don't really care too much about it, perfect. I mean, by all means, that's going to be amazing. So, all right, so clean this off. And as I mentioned earlier, this piece of tape there I left intentionally there. I'll peel this off later. I want to add maybe, let me see if I can peel it off now. Oh, perfect. Look at that. That's just from the paint. I mean, from the, look at that straight line. This is why it's so important. But you can see that paint actually kind of mixed and adhered with that. So we want to make sure we get all of that taken care of. You know, and again, for those who skip video, the reason I put this particular tape here is because I'm going to add a message on the back of this. So I put a tape here to have a nice thick clean line, so that way I'd be able to do that. Beautiful. Alright, so what we're looking at here is the final completion of the smear, and as you can see, it's very reflective. I cleaned it off, wiped it down, and unfortunately the camera still is not showing how well, let me see if I can focus it, how well and clear this smear really is. Very sharp for it being black. Maybe if I kind of step back a little bit, it might be a little better, I'm not sure. But as you can see, you can observe that it's, you know, pretty good looking. It's actually fairly useful considering that it's black. As you can see, you know, previously I put masking tape on the back of this, then I sprayed the back, as you saw in the earlier video. I took the masking tape off very carefully to make sure that I had a nice sharp edge. And of course you can use whatever message you want. I ended up writing on gold foil and put a couple other things there that's you know, associated memory with the love of my life, and you know, those are roses from when we our first date. But as you can see, it matches the perimeter of the picture frame. In this case now it's a mirror, and that hopefully will help bring it in. I'm not much what I would call a designer, but I think overall it's worked very well. Total cost was about, you know, $6–7 for the mirror. No, I'm sorry, for the paint. The mirror, in this case, which was the picture frame, was about 20 bucks. Again, if you have one yourself, it's not a big deal. And as you can see, it is very reflective and it is very useful. So I encourage anyone who wants to maybe make a Valentine's Day present, birthday present. Doesn't take very long at all. It's very quick, and I think it's very personal for whoever you're doing this for, or you can do it for yourself. So there it is again. I'll try and get a nice wide shot so you can kind of look at the example, and I hope you enjoyed my video. If you have any questions, please, you know, leave your comments below, and I'll try and answer them as soon as I can.